Good afternoon, everybody. We appreciate you joining us today. We're excited to have you all with us today. Looks like I think we've got most everybody logged in now. Getting ready to get started. We've got a few others that'll probably be joining us as we proceed through, but we appreciate everybody being with us. Looks like we've got participants coming in from all over the state. So wherever you're located at right now, thanks for joining us and participating with us. We're in a whole new world right now. Not to be, talking Disney movies or anything like that, but things are a little bit different and kind of swirling around with us right now. But we're going to kind of step out of the COVID-19 world for just a little bit and kind of get back to some general business topics. When we wrap up today, we're more than happy. We've kind of been living in this COVID-19 world here as an SBDC over the course of the last 3 weeks. That's kind of been our world. As we wrap up today, I didn't necessarily put together any slides or anything regarding that, but I'm happy to maybe address any questions that some of you might have that we can help address that to get you taken care of there. So a couple things today. Of course, we have everybody muted in coming in today. If you have any questions, we do have the chat feature. We definitely want to invite you to ask questions. You're welcome to ask those questions as we move through the webinar. We will be addressing those questions as best as we can when they pop up. If that's something that will be addressed later on in the webinar, I'll let you know about that, and we'll, again, take care of that at the appropriate time. We also are going to be recording this. This will be sent out to you probably on Monday with a link to the recording so that you'll have that and can go back and review this again should you want to be able to do that. So. Again, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Kevin Peck. I am the director of the Small Business Development Center here at Eastern Arizona College. We cover the Graham and Greenlee and Gila County areas in the southeastern part of Arizona. So many of you are clients and have participated with us before. Some of you might be in some other areas, and we appreciate you joining us, and hopefully you've got a close relationship with your SBDCs there. For those who are not SBDC clients, I just wanted to take you through a little bit about who we are and what we do. The SBDC, or the Small Business Development Center Network, we're funded through the SBA. So we're not the SBA, but we are one of the business support programs, business sustainability programs that are funded through the U.S. Small Business Administration. We're also grant funded through our host institutions. So in order for us to exist, there has to be a relationship between the SBA and our institution. Our Eastern Arizona College, we've had the fortunate, or we have been fortunate to have been here since 1988. We actually have the distinction of being the oldest SBDC in the state. So we've been here for a long time and expect to be here for much longer as part of that. What we do and how we do it is basically we provide no-cost business counseling to businesses, those who are just starting, those who are in business and are looking, expanding, growing, wanting to become more sustainable in those businesses. We offer classes, seminars, trainings, webinars, just like we do today, to try and help give you the resources and educate you and give you the tools that you need in order to be successful as part of that. Now, we do have 10 other centers around the state. Many of you, again, may know who those are. And maybe working with them. I share that with you just to let you know that we may not necessarily have the answer to every question, nor will we have all of the knowledge about every industry or business that's out there. We have an amazing state network of offices and people who work within the network who have lots of background experience and knowledge. If we don't have necessarily those answers or have the experience or expertise in those areas, we're going to find somebody who can. We try to be not only knowledgeable about what we do, but also know where to find the resources to be able to do that. From a nationwide perspective, we are from corner to corner, from top to bottom. We are all over the U.S. We're part of the Association of Small Business Development Centers. We're also in Guam, in the Puerto Rico, the Caribbean Islands. I mean, we are everywhere. The beautiful part of this is that wherever you may be from, we have an SBDC in your area to help take care of what you may be needing at that particular time. As I mentioned, we do have other offices throughout the state. While we have 10 main centers, or what we call lead centers, we do have actually 26 different locations throughout the state. We also have 6 what we call PTAC offices. The AZ PTAC is the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, and their responsibility is to focus more in on contracting with the federal government, contracting with your state government. We work on the business development, the business growth, the business expansion side. Their side is to work hand in hand with us in helping you to find those procurement or contracting opportunities with the federal government. And it would surprise you the amount of services and products that the government does purchase from small business. And so if you are in a business or may be unsure of whether or not there are contracting opportunities available for you, please contact us, and then we'll be happy to get you in contact with them to start to explore that and find out what those procurement needs are by the government and whether or not you can fulfill those as part of that. Now, we do have another organization that we are great partners with, and that's the Arizona Commerce Authority. A year ago, actually this month, we began this relationship with the ACA in helping to promote and get their economic development mission and programs out more fully into the rural areas of Arizona. They have a 3-pronged approach as part of what they do. Number 1, of course, is to recruit more out-of-state companies to expand here in Arizona. They also want to make sure that they're working with our existing businesses that are here to help try and grow those businesses and to move those into additional states or help to grow those into beyond our state borders. But then also to try and help create more jobs and businesses here in our state. We've really enjoyed working with them this last year. This relationship is going to continue forward. We'll wrap up today talking about one of the things that the ACA brings in relation to today's seminar. There are a lot more things that they do offer, but we will kind of wrap up today in talking about one specific tool that they have to help you with that. So let's get in. We're just going to jump right into business legalities. I want to start today, though, talking about business structure. Probably one of the #1 questions people are going to ask us as SBDC counselors is, I don't even know how I should structure my business. I keep hearing about LLCs. I hear that I need to be a corporation. I have a small little lawn mowing service and I want liability protection, and it's just me and my lawnmower. Should I be a corporation? Let's talk through these real quickly just to help you understand what each of those mean and what may fit best for you. I'm by no means telling you that you need to do one of these over the other, but I want to lay these out because every business is a little bit different. So the first of these is sole proprietorship. I would say that most businesses probably start out as sole proprietors, meaning that you might have a really good idea. Maybe you start doing your business out of your garage. You're doing business, but you're not really formally organized in any particular way. You and the business are really all one and the same. If somebody's paying you for your product or for your services, chances are they're making the check out to you directly rather than out to any particular business name. So in a sole proprietorship, you and the business are one and the same. There's really no difference between you and the business. A couple of the drawbacks or one of the drawbacks with this is that as a sole proprietor, you are fully exposed to liability. If something happens and somebody wants to sue you, your personal assets could be at risk depending upon the nature of what that lawsuit might be, the litigation that may happen as part of all of that. So we get a little worried about sole proprietorships, but again, ultimately it's going to come down to what is the nature of your business. Some things I wouldn't do anything more than a sole proprietorship for a lot of businesses. There are a lot of businesses that are sole proprietorships that I would immediately move to at least an LLC or a corporation, depending upon the nature of what they're actually doing. Sole proprietorship, super quick and easy to set up. Basically, you go get your business license. We'll talk about business licenses a little bit later, and your EIN. We'll talk about that a little bit in just a little bit as well. And really, you're up and fully functional. You can start advertising, and you're ready to rock and roll. Now let's talk about the other extreme of this, and that is the corporation. Corporation, many of you have heard of S corps or C corps. Those are two different business organization structures that you can select. When we formally organize a corporation, we're now separating the business from the owner, in that the personal assets of an owner are now separate from the business assets of the company. When we become a corporation, we now have limited liability. Not that anybody cannot sue the company, but it protects you as the owner. It protects you and your personal assets. So now we've separated your home, your car, your personal bank account, your personal assets separate from the company. So if there is litigation or liability may occur with your business, we know that your personal assets are going to be safe. With this, of course, it's much more expensive and a little bit more time consuming, not only in the setup, but moving forward. With a corporation, there are annual meetings that need to be held, annual reports that need to be filed with the Arizona Corporation Commission. There's a lot more engagement and involvement with the requirements of being a corporation. The other benefit, though, I guess if you say a benefit, not only do you have liability protection, but another one of the benefits is that as a corporation, you are now taxed at a corporate tax bracket rather than being taxed at your personal tax bracket, which means that the corporation is now, based upon federal law, you're now going to be taxed at 23% of the profits of the business rather than your personal tax bracket, which your effective rate may be 25, 26, 27%. I don't know what that is, but there may be some tax advantages, there may be some tax advantages of being taxed as a corporation. Now, it doesn't make sense for most of our businesses and a lot of our businesses in the state to immediately have to become a corporation for those benefits. Here we have the ability of being able to form now a limited liability company. What this has done is this has taken the best of sole proprietorship and the best of corporate benefits, and it's combined it into this LLC formation. This still separates business from owner. There's still limited liability, so you still have the liability protection as long as we don't what we call pierce the veil. Piercing the veil means you're not treating your LLC as an LLC. You're treating it as a sole proprietorship, which means you're probably using the business bank account for all of your personal banking. You're not handling your business as a separate entity, separate from you. So if we become an LLC, now we start to do business as business and personal as personal. We're talking about banking, we're talking about operations, we're talking about all of these different factors. Tax-wise, you're still gonna run a Schedule C for your limited liability company, and then those will roll over onto your personal taxes. And we won't necessarily get into that today. That's another conversation for another day. LLCs are very quick and easy to set up. We do these on a daily basis around here. They're registered through the Corporation Commission. They're typically going to be same-day application and same-day approval. And then you're up and running. Those are set up. They'll automatically become perpetual, meaning they roll over in nature year after year. There's no annual filings, no annual reports, no annual fees as part of that. Now, the other beauty of the LLC is that you do have some flexibility with the tax status of this. If it's more advantageous for you to file your taxes, the carry through or the profits of the business as a carry through onto your tax return, if it's more advantageous for you to file those taxes as an individual, then you can be taxed at whatever your current tax bracket is. If it's more advantageous for you to file those taxes though as an S Corp and take advantage of the S Corp tax bracket, then you can make that election. Now, this is a one and done election, and it does need to be made, and I believe it's in the first 60 days, 90 days. I have to go back and double check that. I know that does have to be done in the fairly early stages. I always recommend, if you're working with an accountant or a CPA, have that accountant or whoever does your taxes for you each year, sit down, have that conversation with them about where you are at with your personal tax liabilities and what your bracket is, and help make that determination of which makes most sense. Do I want to be exempt or do I want to be non-exempt? Meaning, do I want to be taxed as an individual or do I want to be taxed as corporate tax bracket? All right, let's get into some other things. Let's talk about city business licenses. It's probably the next question that we always get. City business licenses it's a local business requirement that's issued to all businesses in a city or municipality. It does not, this basically is going to give you the ability of being able to operate as a legal business within the parameters of that town. This is not necessarily a business permit per se, but it's usually, again, going to be issued by a city or a town. If you live inside the county, or let's say you live outside of the city limits, but you still run, your business still operates within within the city limits, chances are you are going to be required to have that business license. Let me give you an example. A carpet cleaning company that may be doing business not only locally within their town, but they also operate within other towns or municipalities around them. They would probably be required to have a business license for each one of those towns as they are transacting business within those city limits. My advice to people, if they're in those types of situations, is number one, call your SBDC. They typically will have the information that you need to be able to answer that. But if there is any question, contact the city or the municipality of where you're going to be doing business and have that conversation with them. And they will be able to help determine whether or not you need that business license or not. It's fairly small as far as the dollar amount. In our communities here, they run anywhere from $25 to $50. It's just peace of mind in my mind that if there's any question, I will usually recommend pay the $25 for the business license. That way we know we're legal to be able to do business there without any problems of any kind. So that's really usually about the only thing from a citywide portion of this. Let's talk about state licensing requirements. So one of the first things we have to deal with from a state perspective is going to be what we call a transaction privilege tax, or a TPT as it's commonly called. Most of you probably know this as a sales tax license. If you were to call the Department of Revenue, they're going to tell you that there's no such thing as a sales tax, but this is a tax on vendors for the privilege of doing business in that state and in that community. Various business activities are going to be subject to the TPT. Not every business is required to have a TPT. The general rule of thumb, now this, and I say general because there are some outliers that may or may not require those. Typically, if you are selling a product or a tangible item, you are going to have a TPT or a transaction privilege tax license. If you are engaged in service only, maybe you are offering web design, or you are offering massage therapy, or massage therapy is kind of in that gray area. There's been some question on that over the years. Maybe you're a car detailing service, and you're only offering service only, then there's no TPT that's needed. Now, if you are in a combination industry, let's say you're at an automotive repair shop. If any of you have gone and had your car repaired lately, look at the invoice that they gave you. There will be a section to show you the labor, or I'm sorry, all of the parts, and then you'll see a subtotal with the parts and a sales tax associated with those parts. Then you're going to see labor added onto that with no additional sales tax, meaning some parts of their business are taxable, other parts of their business are not taxable. So again, TPT is going to be required again if you are going to be selling. If you are purchasing products from somebody else and then selling that to the end consumer, there is a Form 5000 which you'll need to fill out and give to your wholesaler so that they will not charge you sales tax, but they will pass that on to your consumer. The only people who pay sales tax are the end consumer of the product that you are selling. So you won't be charged sales tax, and then you'll be charging sales tax onto the next person. those will be passed on again to the end consumer as part of that. There are some vendor TPT licenses that you'll get, which are typically temporary licenses. You're going to want to double check with your individual municipalities that you're going to be doing vending in, trade shows, trade fairs, events that you might be participating in. Always check with the licensing and the applications on those to find out what they're going to require as part of that. Again, that city will have all the information that you're going to need for that. One of the other things from a state licensing aspect may or may not be impacted by you, and that's what we call doing a DBA, or doing business as. If you were to go to the department, to the Secretary of State's office, which is where this is done, this will be underneath a section of doing a trade name or a trademark registration. What a DBA is again, it's doing business as. This allows your company to legally operate underneath a different trade name, sometimes also known as an assumed name or a fictitious name. This way, it's possible for a sole proprietor or general partners to do business using a name rather than the owner's personal name. So for instance, if I was going to open up my lawn mowing service, and I don't want to necessarily be doing business as Kevin Peck, I may want to register a DBA with the state called Kevin's Lawn Mowing Service. Now I can advertise as Kevin's Lawn Mowing Service. I can have information up on that. I can receive checks now as long as I have my bank account set up with that to be able to handle that and to be able to do that. Question is, where do food vendors land in TPT? There is some question on that, Nikki. If you would reach out to us afterwards on that, I've got another document out there in regards to food vendors, because there is some question about what is taxable and what is not. It gets much more confusing in that, and so I want to make sure I get you the correct information on exactly where food vendors come in as part of that, because there's been a lot of question about that here, and so I want to make sure I get you the correct information there. So make sure we'll make sure that we get in contact with you afterwards to get all of that information to you there for that. Coming back to the DBA, awesome. Coming back to the DBA, again, it just allows you now to be able to have an other name under your business. Now, what we also see, we see a lot of LLCs that will register, they'll have their LLC, but will also register a DBA underneath that. So maybe I have again, I'll use my example. I have Peck Enterprises, LLC. So I would have a DBA underneath the LLC that would be Peck Enterprises, LLC, doing business as, or DBA, Kevin's Lawn Mowing Service. And now I can market that business separately and independent from my LLC, which might be a behind the scenes parent company for what I'm going to be doing. All right, so that's DBAs. We get a lot of questions about DBAs, trade names. How do I get all that set up? Now, here in Arizona, there also are some industry specific licenses. I'm just giving you some examples of what some of those are. If there's any question about whether or not I need another one of those or not, again, the checklist that we're going to give you at the very end will help you check that, but we're also able to help answer that. So some of the industry specific licenses may be cosmetologists, hairdressers, barbers, as part of that. Massage therapists have to have again, these are organizations or industries that are overseen by a statewide organization to ensure quality, safety, protocols, making sure that business is being done a certain way. The trucking industry, whether you're trucking just within the state itself, or are you crossing state borders and trucking into other states, there are going to be regulatory licenses as part of all of that. Contractors. One of the big questions we get from a lot of people is, Kevin, I do a lot of side projects. Do I have to have my contractor's license? If labor and materials are going to exceed $1,000, or if there is a permit required, regardless of price of labor and materials, then you're going to be required to have your contractor's license. There is a handyman's exemption, which gives you the ability of being able to, if you need to go and install a toilet for somebody, you're a handyman service, and then somebody did a toilet installed. That's probably going to be a $150 toilet and probably a $75 to $150 installation. We're talking less than $300. No contractor's license is needed, nor is there a permit required as part of that. Now we get questions now because we have a number of people here in the state who are wanting to do microbreweries and are doing their own craft beers. If any person is intending to manufacture, sell, or deal in liquor in the state of Arizona, they are required to obtain a liquor license with the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control. Now, there are various regulatory requirements inside those licenses. It's dependent upon the number of barrels that are being produced, the number of kegs that are being produced, whether this is for personal consumption or whether this is for commercial sale. All right. So you're going to want to gather that information as part of that. So again, if you have a question, is my business controlled by a state regulatory agency? We are more than happy to help you find that information and get you in contact with them to find that out. Also in the contracting world, if there is, again, anything that has to do with contracting or construction, whether it's residential or commercial, we do want to make sure that we're double checking the Registrar of Contractors website here in Arizona, or give us a call and we'll be more than happy to walk you through that. The licensure process of getting your contractor's license can be fairly lengthy, but we do have some organizations here in the state that really help to streamline that down and make that easier for you. Now let's talk federal. There are no federal business licenses required. However, again, similar to our state requirements, for instance, just an example might be the ATF, all right? They are a federal organization who are going to be overseeing and watching what gun shops are doing, pawn shops are doing, especially as it deals with ammunition, tobacco, firearms. All of those things are going to be highly regulated. So again, there may be some federal agencies overseeing those. We'll get that information to you. But from a federal perspective, really the only thing that we recommend, because there's no federal licensure going on, we always recommend small businesses to at least get their EIN. Now, an EIN is also known as an employer identification number. Sometimes sometimes you may hear about this as a federal tax identification number or a TIN. What this is used for is it now gives your business an identification number, something other than your social security number, which many sole proprietors are using. And in this day and age, we want to protect those social security numbers as much as possible. The EIN is very simple to get. There's no cost to get the EIN. It's a simple online process that we go through. It takes us about 5 minutes or so, and we print that EIN out at the completion of that. Again, if you have any questions or would like assistance in getting through that, we're more than happy to get that taken care of for you. Now let's talk about some liability insurance and bonding requirements. Again, one of the other big questions that we get about how legal does my business have to be? General liability insurance is not necessarily required by law, but often businesses are going to be required by their clients or by their customers to have general liability insurance as part of a contract to do work. So larger companies typically are going to require smaller vendors to have that general liability insurance. We typically, as an SBDC, counsel clients to have that liability insurance, even if you are an LLC. LLCs, again, are going to have some limitations there, and we want to make sure that we have the insurance on hand and have enough insurance on hand so that in case we do have litigation or a lawsuit that's brought and findings are found against you, that the insurance is there to make sure that that the business does not go out of business. We want to, again, this is for the protection to be able to make sure that that is sustainable and will help the business continue on should anything of that nature come up. Now, the other question that comes up a lot of times is people will ask me, well, do I have to be bonded as a small business? You only need to be bonded if your state or municipality are going to require it. Typically, and again, kind of a deciding factor there is going to be if your business frequently performs services in customers' homes or on the premises of other businesses, you may want to consider becoming bonded just to protect your customers or your business's financial health. Now, a bond is basically it's a cash guarantee to ensure that you're going to complete the business that's required. So let me give you an example. In the case of a contractor, someone who's doing concrete, let's just say someone who does concrete installation, they would have a bond that would say, we have a $15,000 bond that we're required to have. If they do not complete the job, or if the job is not completed correctly, as the customer, I can file against their bond, and if they refuse to come out and do it, I can file a claim against their bond in order to recoup the dollars needed in order to have that project or that job done correctly, or to even have it finished to the degree that it needs to be done. Typically, we only see bonds in the construction industry. I haven't seen bonds really much at all outside of someone who might need to have their contractor's license. Bonds also come in two different forms. They come in the form of a surety bond or in the form of a cash bond. So let me explain those a little bit more in depth. A cash bond would be, you have enough money cash-wise to be able to bond yourself. In that case, you would go to a bank or a financial institution. You would let them know that you need to set up an account for your bond. Then they would fill out the appropriate paperwork, and those funds would be locked away so that, and then you would have the proper documentation then out to file with the Registrar of Contractors to ensure that you have the appropriate bonding requirements to provide your clients and your customers and your business the protection that it needs. Now, not a lot of businesses have that $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in order to do a bond, because it does, again, cash bonds require that cash to be there and available. In that case, now we have an opportunity to be able to get what's called a surety bond. A surety bond it's kind of like insurance. We go to an insurance company, and we let them, if they do surety bonds, and it really is just like insurance. You pay a small amount monthly or annually, and it's basically the insurance policy that says we are going to provide the bond for this business should they need that. Both of those meet the requirements, at least here in the state of Arizona and the Registrar of Contractors, whether it's a cash bond or a surety bond. Either way, you may start with a surety bond early on because you may not have the cash to get going. Later on, and you have the cash available, you may want to stop making that monthly payment and then put those dollars into a cash bond, again, just to keep yourself from having to pay that additional insurance. And then you self-fund now your own bond with the steel reporting requirements as part of that. Again, most of you are never ever going to have to deal with a bond, but again, we mainly see this predominantly in the construction industry or supportive industries with construction. Let's talk about workers' compensation for just a few moments. Under Arizona law, it is mandatory for employers to secure workers' compensation insurance for their employees. If an illness or an injury is job-related, then the injured worker, sometimes we'll call them the applicant or the claimant, they can then receive medical benefits and may receive temporary compensation underneath that program if the eligibility requirements are met. Now, the Industrial Court Commission of Arizona oversees this. They have a wonderful website that will help give you more details about that. Workman's comp is one of those things where you're going to want to make sure you have full information about that and how much needs to be paid each month. There are programs designed to help you figure out what that workers' compensation is and what that insurance is going to cost. And it always comes down to what are the types of work that your employees are doing. Those who are working in construction are probably going to have a higher workman's compensation rate than somebody who may have a secretary sitting at a desk job. The probability of being injured or coming down with an illness or being harmed in some way is much less in some businesses rather than others. So again, you'll want to work closely with them. They will help you to figure out what that dollar amount should be and how that should be paid in order. If you overpay that in a year, there are no refunds that come back. So we want to make sure that we nail those dollar amounts down so that you're not having to pay any more than is going to be required as part of that. So from a business legality side of this, that's pretty much everything that you need to worry about from a business legalization side. How do I formally organize? What licensing do I have to legally operate in the state of Arizona? And what are some of the other things I need to think about from a insurance bonding side of things there? Now, if you have some questions about what do I need for my business, two different options for you. Number one, you can always call us at the SBDC here in Southeastern Arizona. You can contact your local SBDC office, which we always recommend. We want you to have a good and close relationship with them. But if you want to kind of do your own homework or just to check and see, do I have everything I need? Our partners at the Arizona Commerce Authority have developed a business checklist that you can go through, and it will ask you a bunch of self-identifying questions, such as what county and what city are you in? What type of business are you? Are you in a dog grooming business? Are you selling snow cones? Do you offer a lawn mowing service? Are you in construction? And it's going to ask you all kinds of questions through that, as well as some additional questions about how your business is operating. Do you have employees? What your address is? What are some of those additional, again, self-identifying questions that need to be identified? And when you hit submit with that, it will print out a full checklist of everything that needs to be considered for your business to legally formalize that and to make sure that you've covered all of your bases. They will identify all of the industry regulatory organizations, both statewide and federally, that need to be considered and that may need to be approached in making sure that you're operating correctly. It will also identify phone numbers and websites, contact people that you need to contact in your local city or municipality or county to ensure that you have all the proper documentation, everything that you need as part of that. So we invite you to go out again, take a look at that checklist. We use that checklist here in our office as well. If we get an industry that'll come in that may be fairly new to us, that we want to ensure that we've covered all of our bases with them, some of these we may want to go through, and again, with that checklist just to ensure as part of that. So again, you can just go to azcommerce.com, go into the small business section, and then go right into the business checklist, and it will walk you right through all of those options. So from a legal aspect of legal compliance, making sure that you're doing your business right, I think we've covered about everything that we need to cover on that. So are there any questions, anything that has come up other than Nikki and her question just a few minutes ago? Any other questions that we can answer for you that we may not have covered that you may have some question on? And the crowd goes wild.
This is Chris Hidalgo. I had a question about do you know of any specific licenses that would be pertaining to as far as IT or any cybersecurity consulting?
None that I'm aware of. Now, there may be, of course, with a lot of those types of industries, there are certifications, other outside type organizations who may have some programs that you can go through to receive some of those certifications, but I'm not aware of any regulatory side of things other than just what's legally mandated out there just as part of law, and what can be done or what cannot be done as a technology specialist in that area, whether it's cybersecurity, those types of things. So I'm not aware of anything in that world. We could definitely dig into that more if we needed to, just to ensure that we haven't missed anything there. But I would definitely look into those certifications, what types of programs are out there, which will do a couple of things. Number one, always ensure that you are up to date with the latest compliance, legal questions, what we can, what we can't do that's out there. But it also brings a certain level of confidence that customers or your clients will have in you, in them knowing that you've received those certifications, that you actually know what you're doing and you're not just a fly-by-night hacker. I hope I don't use that term offensively in any way, but again, just to make
sure. You're fine. Thank you for that.
No problem. Thanks, Chris. Any other questions, either in the chat or opening up your mic? All right. Well, guys, we appreciate you participating with us today. Again, if you have any questions, if we've covered something that maybe you're not necessarily really wanting to ask the question here in this, but have questions in other areas about what's going on, what are some of the legalities of some things that may be happening, especially right now in this COVID-19 world that we're dealing with. We want to make sure that we're providing a service to you, providing all the information that you need. We want to be here to support you as you go through this new world that we're in right now. We do invite you to, number one, all of you are now going to be on our email list. We try not to bombard you with too much. We do have a lot of information going out right now regarding lending programs, COVID-19 resources. Again, trying to get you all of the support and help that we can get you to kind of get through this very difficult time. We do encourage you to follow us on our Facebook page. We're trying to upload as much information as possible onto there. Facebook kind of seems like a much quicker and easier way for a lot of people. So please go follow us on facebook.com/EACSBDC. Here shortly, our state network is going to be having our statewide page up and going with COVID-19 resources from a statewide perspective. So please keep your eyes open for that as well. We will get you that information as soon as it becomes available on behalf of our state network. So again, thank you for participating. We will be sending you some follow-up information on this in the upcoming days. So early next week, please take time and be looking for that. Again, we appreciate you and look forward to visiting with you next time in our next webinar.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, everyone.